Reagan Box might be one of the most interesting and original candidates ever to run for one of Georgia's United States Senate seats. She is a down to earth country girl who was taught to revere her God and her country. The Berry College graduate studied art and history in Paris, France. She followed that with shark and sea turtle research in the Florida Keys. She then traveled to Costa Rica to do missionary work. And for the last 16 years, she has traveled around the country, starting, training, and showing horses nationally. Reagan's brand is clear, solid conservative, and no nonsense. She is the hottest candidate roadshow in Georgia, and that makes the old guard a little uneasy. Reagan Box joins us for a no-holds-barred discussion on her candidacy. Hey, we're joined by Reagan Box. She's a candidate for Georgia's Senate position. Reagan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Hey, look, one thing we love to do at Editorial Interchange is highlight local economies. And we always ask the people we interview if they'd like to give a shout out to a locally owned business in your area. Do you have one you'd like to give us?
Go to my dad's restaurant. It's Wanda's Restaurant in Rock Springs, Georgia.
Awesome. So if you're in Rock Springs, go by and see her. Where did you grow up? You've got one of the most interesting backgrounds of any candidate that I've had to interview. Where did you grow up, and kind of summarize for us, if you would, how did you get to the point where you are now, running for the Senate?
So I grew up in Chickamauga, Georgia. My grandfather was the youngest person ever signed on to the FBI, and he was also sheriff of Walker County where I lived. And basically, I've been watching everything. I've always watched politics at a federal level. And I was reading my Founder's Bible one day, and for the people that don't know what it is, it's a NSAB version of the Bible, but all throughout it, it has stories of our founding fathers and our history, so we know where we come from as Christian patriots. And I was reading it, and it kind of hit me. Our founding fathers, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, they weren't fighting. They were willing to fight and die, not for a country, but just for an idea. So if we don't start electing politicians with that same heart and soul in them, our nation's done. And that's what brought me to it. Like, I've been watching what's been going on in our politics in our country, and it makes me sick how corrupt it is, how they're not working for the people anymore. It's about corporations, big tech and big pharma. And I just decided, I'm tired of voting for the lesser of two evils on a ballot. And I'm going to be the change I want to see.
Well, hey, let me give you some question that was presented to me when I said I was going to do this interview. Somebody asked me, is she tough enough to run for the U.S. Senate? Can she compete with those guys out there who just try to roll over everybody? How would you respond to that?
So, I would break my own colts out west. I was Women's Ranch Rodeo Reserve World Champion, U.S. Cutting Horse Reserve World Champion. Like I tell people, I tie down 1,000 to 2,000 pound animals till they submit to my will. Imagine me going in the U.S. Senate, doing that to McConnell, Romney, Schumer, Warnock, and the rest of them. I've actually got a scar on my chest where I wrestled a buffalo.
That wrestling McConnell is an image that just makes me smile. I don't know what it is.
I'm afraid I might break a hip with him or create a seizure.
Your campaign slogan is "Restore the Dream." Tell us what that means to you.
So much restoration that needs to be done in our country right now. Like, how can we say we're the land of opportunity when we've got 31% of Americans on welfare? So what I want to do with welfare, and this will work great with Trump wanting to bring manufacturing back to our country because they're going to need skilled labor jobs, but everyone that can work, we send them to a trade school where they can learn a skill to get out of poverty. They'll be making $60,000 to $100,000 a year. This will better their lives. And you've got to think about the impact this will have on our economy. Instead of paying $1.2 trillion a year to welfare, these people will make a collective income of $3.5 to $6.5 trillion that they'll be spending in our local businesses and in our communities. which will bolster our economy like nothing else. I want to restore integrity and transparency into our politics. You know, one thing I want to do after I help codify all of Trump's executive orders is actually limit the number of executive orders a president can write, because we've been on this slippery slope where they've been going over the legislative branch with those executive orders. And I don't know if you know who wrote the most executive orders and how many. Do you have any clue? It was
I would
FDR, and he wrote
really.
3,721. And that's what put our country into a lot of the place where we are now. We have I want to restore the Constitution by getting rid of the administrative state, because we have 425 federal agencies and over 300 of them are illegally formed. Congress is the only one that has permission to make all of these agencies. And unfortunately, they've been made through executive order, as we found out with USAID, and we found that out with many, many others. And we've had other agencies just make up agencies. And if we got rid of that bureaucracy right there, we'd save the taxpayers so much money.
You know, you were cited as a champion of conservative values. And I wanted to ask you, do you see conservative values currently in the United States Senate?
Really don't. And it's really sad. I mean, you just look at what Trump's trying to get passed in the House and Senate now with the big, beautiful bill. People are just wanting to fight instead of do what's right for Americans. And that's my bottom line. Like, we've got to do right by the people. And that's why I've already came up with plans to fix Social Security, fight the medical and pharmaceutical price gouging, and just find common sense solutions to our issues.
Tell me, what do you think of the Doge movement?
I think it's great. Like I tell people, it's really sad when you can turn our government spending into a comedy skit. But like, we spent $2 million to study the effects of moonshine on lab rats. And I tell people, you know, I live in North Georgia. You can come to a bar with me any Friday, Saturday night, and we can study the effects of moonshine on rednecks for free. Um, we spent $580,000 to study the effects of cocaine on Japanese quail. And it's yet to be seen whether the quail got the cocaine, Hunter Biden, or it was left in the White House press room. I mean, why are they wasting our money on this stuff? This is coming out of
I
mine
know.
and your pocket.
I know. I know that I think it was Health and Human Services just killed several funded projects on transsexual lab rat experiments, which you got to wonder, what in the heck are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. And the whole transgender movement infuriates me, because the left wants to propagate this false narrative that they're doing it for people's mental health. But yet, if you go and read the psychological studies, they're 20 times more likely to commit suicide after the surgery than before. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. And how many billions of dollars did we spend of our money sending money to like Afghanistan for transgender studies there?
Absolutely. In the big beautiful bill, I wanted to ask you this. There's almost or around $1 trillion set aside for some of the Green New Deal projects. And I've heard that the rationale for that is the companies that were going to get the money or don't want to pull out of it. What's your view on that?
I don't believe in global warming and the narrative that they're pushing. And I use simple science to state this. So we've all heard people in politics say, well, the icebergs are going to melt and flood the coastal cities, right? Well, the simple theory of displacement you learn in fourth grade science proves otherwise. So when water freezes and becomes ice, the surface area expands, it becomes less dense, that's why it floats. But because of the greater surface area, it pushes out a greater volume of water when it's in water. That's why when you have a cup of ice water, when the ice melts, it doesn't overflow. It will actually be 5% less than when it starts. So I don't believe in the Green New Deal. pushing electric cars and all these solar panels and wind farms and stuff, it's not going to work. You will never reach carbon neutral on that. Um, just the amount of energy it takes to dig up the material to make those wind farms or solar panels. And then we look at the lithium batteries. That's just an ecological hazard to begin with. I think there are a lot smarter ways to help our environment. And one of them is bringing back manufacturing to America, because we have 50,000 cargo ships in our ocean bringing everything to and from America. And just 14 of those ships produce as much CO2 as every single car in the world. So if we just take 14 of those cargo ships out of commission, we will do more for the environment than driving electric cars. And we fix our supply chain problems, and we give Americans jobs.
Thought it was telling that Greta Thunberg decided to become a Palestinian activist now and got out of the green stuff altogether, and that the tech bros, who were green, but then when they needed more electricity for that artificial intelligence, all those green initiatives went out the window. I thought, if that doesn't tell you that the whole thing was very suspicious, almost a scam, what does?
Well, I mean, our electrical grid can't even handle people like when it's extremely hot or cold now. We have brownouts all the time. So it will take $32 trillion to upgrade our electrical grid. We don't have the technology and we're not ready for this. There's simpler solutions. One of the things is just plant trees. Have your own I have my own duck, chickens, and geese. Raise your own food. Like, it doesn't have to be a big manufactured process. We can do a lot just on our properties. I also have bees. I get my own honey. It's about helping the environment in simple little ways, but people just want to believe what they hear.
We've got 38 some odd trillion dollars in debt. Is Congress even capable of taking that number down?
If they're willing to make cuts, and if they're willing to, what I want to do is institute the fair tax, because there's so many loopholes for special interest groups right now. People aren't paying their fair share. And it said with a fair tax, we'll generate 10 to 25% more revenue for our country. We could use that extra money, to get people on Social Security up to the cost of living in each state and pay off our national debt. You could probably pay off at $3-4 trillion a year by just moving to the fair tax. But Congress is going to have to change their traditional way of thinking, and they're going to have to get off their rears and actually do it.
Thomas Massey has taken a real stand for trying to get the debt down. And he's looking at saying we need to make cuts where cuts need to be made. Are you willing to take a similar stand in the Senate?
Yes. I mean, we've got to. This isn't sustainable. And with the way our government has printed out money using the modern monetary theory, and we're losing our reserve world currency status very, very quickly. 109 countries have quit using the US dollar to trade in last time I checked. When there's nobody left to absorb all this money they printed out, we will have hyperinflation like we've never seen before. And they're not getting the people ready. They're doing nothing to overcome this. It's not sustainable.
What's your position on China?
So, like Trump with the tariffs and everything else, I think realistically, we're not going to fix the trade deficit till we realize China and India are both using slave labor. So I think if you put an embargo on them till they started treating their people right, they wouldn't have the economy to try to go after Taiwan or anything else. It's just a simple way to get them under control and make them do right by their people. Because we all know, if you read Chinese history at all, the first thing they want to do is start massacring their people.
You see the tariffs as working as Trump is presenting them, and especially related to China?
I hope they will, but like I said, they are still using slave labor, so they will always make it infinitely cheaper than we will. And until we deregulate massively, that's what's driven up the cost of manufacturing here in America. I think there's more to look at than just tariffs.
What's your position on Iran? It looks like Trump is saying, let's make a deal. You've got some people in Congress, though, saying, let's look at, gearing up the military machine. Where do you stand on the Iranian situation?
I think there are a lot of wars we've been in since World War II that were just because they needed war to prop up the US dollar, the military industrial complex. War makes money. And I would like to look at all the members of Congress wanting to call war. Um, I think we just cut off all aid to them. Like I said, most of these countries wouldn't be able to do what they do if we just cut off our aid. We know October 5th happened because we gave Iran all that money and it was funneled to Hamas, and Hamas used it to attack Israel. If we wouldn't be funding all sides of this by giving countries aid, a lot of this would stop. If your country can't run without our aid to you, then those people need to change their own government so they're working right.
Um, how about Ukraine? Do you think we can make peace without having NATO pushing into that conflict with Russia?
I feel like they don't, I feel like NATO and Europe doesn't want peace in Ukraine. I mean, somebody funneled them all of those, um, what are they, drones and everything else to just attack Russia and all that. They keep allowing it to happen. If the world wasn't funneling the money to Ukraine, Ukraine would have to get peace there. Zelensky broke the Minsk agreement when he started trying to get the UN in there. He keeps doing things that crosses. Putin has said numerous times what his red line is, and Zelensky keeps pushing that red line, and then wants the world to go fight for him when he's the aggressor in a lot of ways. To me, I have a different view on it because I look at everything in a very historical manner. And Ukraine was part of Russia for thousands of years before. I mean, that is just historical fact. And even though they broke away, like they say, Texas broke away from America. Even 30 years later, you and I we'd be like, no, it needs to be part of America. That just, it looks wrong. So I don't necessarily blame Putin for thinking that he's unifying. That's what any president of America would do if a state started breaking away. We celebrate Abraham Lincoln as a hero because he went to war to save the Union.
Where do you stand on the Second Amendment? Can we uphold the Second Amendment? Do you think it's in danger, or are things with the recent Supreme Court decisions and laws enacted by several of the states in the United States, are we holding firm or gaining ground on the Second Amendment protections?
We're gaining ground. In some ways, we're losing ground. I think the Second Amendment is absolute, and nothing angers me any more than a politician saying, well, you don't need that gun for hunting. Nowhere in the Second Amendment does it say anything about hunting. This is just our rights as citizens. And we don't have a gun issue in our country. We have a mental health care crisis. So in 1955, we had 345 beds per 100,000 people for mental illness. And today we're down to 11.7 beds per 100,000 people. And instead of trying to normalize mental health issues, we need to get people help. It's not fair for the people that have mental health issues, and it's not fair for society. And our jail systems are overrun with people with mental health issues, and that's no place for them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We kind of normalized mental illness too. I think that's part of the trans type of thing. They're now doing a study showing that a lot of the young children have autism, and you're using that autism to convince them that they should, change their sex through the hormones and the surgeries and everything else.
Why would you be talking to children anything sexual like that? Why in the world, unless you thought they were touched inappropriately or something, these conversations don't need to be had. And that wouldn't pop up in the kids' heads if we weren't feeding it to them. I mean, it just wouldn't. Me as a young girl, I was a tomboy. I was outside playing, and kids go through puberty and their body changes and whatnot. And so, yeah, there is some sort of confusion, but that's just normal part of growing, and you grow out of it. And I think it's a parent's place to guide their children and say, yeah, I understand you're confused now, but trust me, it will change. You won't always feel this way. I'm sure most people, if they were truly honest with themselves, yeah, they had different feelings growing up, that they experience different things, but it doesn't mean you're not what you're supposed to be.
Well, President Trump has done an excellent job shutting the border down. Illegal crossings are down to a trickle. Fentanyl coming over the border is down by, I think, half now. So we pretty much got the border locked up on the southern side. But what are we going to do with the millions of illegal aliens who are living in the United States? Because how do you move them? Or is there another method that you'd like to see?
I think Trump basically giving them money to self-deport, or giving them money to as like a bounty, you start turning each other in. I think that would be the cheapest and easiest way. I really think, I know Trump declared the cartel as a terrorist organization, but I think we need to use our military to clean up the cartel, because I'm going to be honest, what's going on at the border is not going to stop with a wall, and it's not going to stop with what's going on by not attacking the cartel. If the cartel would dig 30 miles worth of tunnels to get El Chapo out of prison, they dig another 30 miles worth of tunnel to deviate through that wall, and it just might take them some time. But we've got to go after the cartel. And when the cartel's not there to steal people's land, to steal their money, to rape the women, to murder people, people will be safe in their country. They can make a living, and they'll want to stay in their countries. And if we'll go halfway across the world to attack terrorist organizations everywhere else, we should use our military on the cartel. And they have killed more people, more Americans on American soil than any other terrorist group combined. Now, I think that should be number one, what we do, instead of going to Iran, to Ukraine, or anywhere else in the world.
It's very unfortunate with all the lawfare that we're seeing now from the liberal judges, federal judges, and how they're gumming up everything. Um, do you think that we're ever going to see an impasse? I don't think we have enough in terms of percentage of the Congress, especially coming up to the midterm, to impeach any judges. So what do you think the solution is? Do we
I
just
think you've just
ignore?
got to start putting the impeachments in place and putting them under trial, letting Americans see them, make there an outcry. You may not get them officially impeached, but you've got to fire those warning shots. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening. And just sitting there and waiting for a majority, waiting for enough people to go through the way the laws are set up. Even then, I think you have to have 2/3 to impeach. So you'll have to get half the Democrats to vote anyways. So just go ahead and start impeaching. Start the process at least.
Gain of function research and how the government responded to the pandemic. Give us your take on that.
I don't think that should be allowed. We aren't God. We don't know the repercussions of what we do. And I mean, we saw during COVID, it was unleashed on society, and we, the people worldwide, not even just Americans, had to suffer the consequences of people toying with things they shouldn't be toying with. So I think it should be illegal. There's no reason to see what happens with these. And I don't know if you know it, and it may have been shut down already, but Fauci had a lab in Bainbridge, Georgia, where he was doing all that testing on monkeys and doing the gain of function. And when I went and spoke there, I think a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they were telling me about that. And they were really scared about that. This should not be happening anywhere. I mean, it should be a worldwide law.
Absolutely. They've definitely put out the warning signs. There have been scientists all over the world that have exposed the danger. So the fact that they're still doing it, you have to wonder, what is the motivation? Some people say it's a biological warfare that they're actually cooking up. And some people just say, well, it's to make a better vaccine. But the virus morphs over time. So the vaccine is useless by the time you produce it.
Well, not only that, but you've got to think about companies like 23andMe. They just went bankrupt or sold. And I think a Chinese company, they're fighting over it right now, who gets the genetic data. But you can create whole bio diseases and do germ warfare just on races. I mean, it's not right. It's unethical, and we should not. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, no one should want this in our world. It just makes the world a more dangerous place.
Seen that too. Hey, what do you think about RFK Jr.? What's your thoughts on him?
I hope he can do everything he's wanting to do. There is so much going on. Um, that is detrimental to Americans' health. Like a lot of the ingredients in our food, if you look at Europe, those are illegal in Europe. We are killing Americans. And you can look at simple beach photographs from 1970s to today, and you didn't see one single obese person on the beach. And today, I think it's somewhere like 70 to 80% of Americans are overweight. And we need to look at what we're putting into our bodies. It's only smart. And then what he's doing with the vaccines is great. I mean, like I was listening to his lawyer one day in an interview, and he's talking about the graphene oxide and all of that in shots, and they have more than the legal limit in these vaccines. I can tell you, and I'm 44 years old, growing up, you didn't see the number of cases of autism and stuff like you do today. It's coming from somewhere. We didn't just become genetically inferior overnight. What is creating this?
No, I have to agree. Um, I saw a webpage. It described you as a conservative Christian. What does that mean to you?
To me, it's all about finding truth. This isn't about my truth. This isn't about your truth. This is finding the universal God's truth in everything. And I just try to find out what is right. It's about having integrity and putting what's right above myself. I mean, I say some that are to some people would be pretty unpopular, but I've got to be honest and true. I think that's what God asks us to do, is just speak these truths no matter how hard it is. And you've got to think about the apostles. I mean, all but one died horrible, terrific deaths. So, come what may, hopefully that doesn't happen, but you've got to stand up and you've got to speak the truth and stand up and fight. And Thomas Jefferson had this amazing quote, and I thought about making it my campaign quote. But it says, "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." It is our Christian duty to stand up for what is true, what is right, and anything that takes us away from that.
You know, a lot of times with Congress, your local government, you see the people in the grocery store, you kind of get a feel for what's going on because it's happening right outside your house. But at the federal level, most people don't have a clue what their elected officials are doing day to day or month to month, even. So, for the viewers that don't know you very well and maybe not even know the incumbent very well, how do you distinguish yourself from the incumbent?
I am an everyday, hardworking American. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth or with money. I've had to work hard for everything I've got. I don't think I'm better than anyone else. And I go and talk to the people. And I think that's why we've got an elite state in DC, because most people don't talk to their constituents. They don't know what's going around them. And, and I've really had I'm really surprised at how well this has worked in Rome, but I've actually went into the projects and stuff by myself, and I'll sit there and have a beer with them and smoke a sweet and mild and just talk to them about the issues that are affecting them. And I know these people. I don't bring up Republican or Democrat. I just speak to them about what's hurting them. And all of them, by the time I'm done and tell them I'm running for U.S. Senate, they go, "Ma'am, give me all your information. I want a hat and shirt. We'll vote for you because you're genuine, and I know you mean that you'll fight for me." And that makes me happy, but it breaks my heart because they haven't felt that before, and that's what our government should be. I gave a lady that works at Popeye's Chicken some hat and some push cards. And a month later, I came back in there and she yells out my name and gives me a hug. And she went, "Just remember, you're fighting for me."
I think that's been part of the success of a Donald Trump, where you see African American males, Hispanic males. The numbers are just rising in the 2024 numbers when he got elected. I think they're trying to find some hope, and they're trying to find hope in somebody who will actually watch them and pay attention to them.
Republican meetings, we just have to go out and talk to these minority groups. They're hurting just like we are. Don't go there with any prejudice or pretense. Just talk to them. I've been surprised wearing my Reagan for U.S. Senate ball cap around town. People, my name Reagan, it's just so iconic. People stop me and ask me about it. I had this one young black lady stop me, and she looked like your typical liberal voter. She had sleeves of tattoos, about 5 piercings down each side of her cheek. And she starts asking me about my hat. And I'm like, this isn't going to go well, but I'm going to try. And I'm like, my name's Reagan and I'm running for U.S. Senate. And we spoke politics for about 5 minutes. By the time I was done, she would give me all your push cards you have. I want to tell my friends and family to vote for you. She called out all the kitchen staff at Burger King, and we're all just standing there taking selfies together. And I think it's just being honest with people, loving people for people, and not caring about where they're at. I was in town yet again, and this black gentleman stopped me. He had dreads down to his rear. He went, I haven't seen that name Reagan in a long time. And I'm just like, sir, my name's Reagan Box. I'm running for U.S. Senate. And I shook his hand. And he went, what do you stand for? And I went, no more money to Ukraine when Americans are hurting. He gave me a hug. He gave me a high five. He went, you got my vote. And it was that simple. That's all you have to do is know what's hurting people, because too many people are hurting right now. We have 65 million Americans on welfare. That's not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. That's a poverty lifestyle. And that shouldn't be happening in the greatest nation in the world. Me as a Christian, we deserve better.
Give me what you would consider a successful first term in the U.S. Senate.
If I can just get the welfare, Social Security reform, and the medical and pharmaceutical price gouging, I would think I would help so many Americans right there. Like the medical and pharmaceutical price gouging, I can tell you from being involved with animals like I have in my life, as soon as they put for human use only on products, they jack up the price thousands, if not millions of dollars. Like I found one company that makes MRI machines for both humans and horses. And both machines have the same exact specs and the same exact resolutions. And you would think the horse machine would cost more because it's big enough to fit a horse. No, the human machine's 1.2 million and the horse machine is 100,000. And this is just astounding. Why are they letting this happen? Crofab, the medicine you take if you get bit by a venomous snake. You and my dog will take the exact same medicine and the exact amount. But if you get bit, they're going to charge you $15,000. And my dog got bit in 2018 and he got $500 for the same medicine. Why are they allowing this? We've got to stop putting corporations, big tech and big pharma over the people. I honestly believe that we wouldn't even need insurance if they were working on a decent model, and your dog gets better health care than you and I do. I mean, you think about it. You take your dog to a vet. Not only do they cure your dog, but it's cheaper. With us, they just give us medicine to cover up a symptom so we become lifelong patients. That's not right.
I think that's one of the big things with the Ozempic when it's used for weight loss. And I think we're starting to see a lot of these people now have been told you're going to have to stay on this in perpetuity. And now they're starting to see that there are some harmful side effects. And so it's big pharma, once again, when you can make some lifestyle changes, some diet changes, achieve the same thing, but we're forcing them into a market where they have to rely on drugs to manage their lifestyle.
Yeah, instead of putting in the hard work, we're just creating more laziness in our society, saying just take this and it will all be better, when they would feel so much better, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally if they changed their lifestyle.
And where do you think about candidates like yourself in relation to lobbyists and all these other different campaign contributors who demand something in exchange for the money? Is that something that you're doing, or you oppose, or what?
I couldn't live with myself doing that. I think it should be illegal. especially any foreign lobbyist, especially foreign lobbyists. I mean, we had the World Health Organization come into the Georgia legislative branch just last session or session before last, trying to push that they can come in like China if they say a pandemic's here. And I think this should be illegal. It should be what's right for the people, and it should never be institutions or corporations.
Is there anything that we have not discussed in this interview that you would want viewers to know? And I'll give you the opportunity to have the last word here.
One of the other big issues I want to fight is Social Security reform. Georgia, most people don't realize this, but it's in the top 10 states of people going hungry every single day. 1 in 7 elderly, and this is partially because Social Security. The average person gets $1,300 a month from it, but the cost of living is $1,800 a month here in Georgia. And then what I don't like about Social Security is it's estimated you only get a negative 4% return of investment on it. And think about it. You paid into the system your whole life. If you're only on the system for a year and then pass away, the government keeps all your hard-earned money. So what I would like to do is say people 40 and above, you get Social Security. 40 and below, the government's going to mandate that you get an annuity at whatever financial institute you want. And your employer has to pay into it just like Social Security. You can't touch it till you're 65. But you'll get a 4 to 6% return of investment, and your children can inherit it so we can start building generational wealth here in America. I think that's a lot better answer. And then to help the people on Social Security now, like I said, we need to move to the fair tax to generate that extra income so we can get people up to the cost of living in each state. And then the extra money generated from the fair tax, use it to pay off the national debt.
Well, that's awesome. Tell us how people can find you on the internet.
On Facebook, I am Reagan Box, U.S. Senate 2026, X, Reagan Box GA. I know I have a lot more social media, but I don't remember all my handles. They can also go to my website, reaganforgeorgia.com, and learn more about me. They can volunteer, donate, whatever they can do.
Well, Reagan, thank you so much for carving out some time to interview with us, and we wish you all the best in the coming election.
Thank you, Steve. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, thank you for joining us with this interview for Reagan Box. This Senate race is going to be phenomenal. We've got all different kinds of characters involved. We've got big money in the state and out of the state working on this race. It's going to be one to watch, and we'll try to get interviews with every one of the candidates. If you would, like, subscribe, and share, and that's what makes our channel go. If you want to do a 3-minute clip on something that you're passionate about, send us a pitch to editorialinterchange.net. We'll be glad to look it over, and if we like it, you'll get 3 minutes on our channel on any issue that you want to propose. Thank you, and thank you so much for all watching. Share it with your friends, and let's start looking at this Senate race.